This is the Artist Journal. It is a short series where I answer one question each week about my life as an artist, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, the becoming, and the story behind the work. And so this week's question is, how old are you when you started art, and how has it influenced your journey in life? So I started art when I was very young. I was naturally very good at art. I would just, if I could pick up a pen, pencil, paint, whatever medium I had in my hands, I was always able to create. And I got a lot of praise from my parents, my family, my teachers especially, about, being quite good at art. And I remember the one time when I started a new school, and I think I was maybe like 5, 6, I think it was. And we had to draw like tables and chairs. And so I drew table and chairs, and everyone was just like, wow. And I was like, it's just a rectangle with lines. The most simplest things, like I would get praised for it at a very young age. And I think, because it was so easy for me to do, like just the very basics, of drawing, very basics of creating, I didn't think it was really much of a big deal. People kept saying, you're good at art at a young age. And I remember when I was around 6, 7, I used to go to the art gallery. And so we lived like 10 minutes away from the art gallery in Walsall town. And these were the days when, kids could just play out for hours, and it was safe. So anyhow, I would go to the art gallery by myself and just walk around at that age. And I know I really, I loved being in that atmosphere. And then, as I, got older, I went to secondary school. I used to spend, sometimes I used to spend my lunchtime just in the art room by myself working on projects I was working on. And so, it was always something that I was, I always just enjoyed doing. At that time when I was, spending time in the lunchtime doing like my art projects, I was also very passionate about sports at that age. And I think that was when I was around, it's like 13, 14. And I was very passionate about sport. And I think because sport gave me so much structure and confidence. And, my parents broke up when I was around 7 or 8. So it was really difficult at home. We didn't really have that structure. And, I think it really affected me at that age. So I really loved sport because of what it gave me, the structure and, the confidence it gave. And so anyhow, I lived with my mum till I was around, I think, 13, 14, I believe. Then I moved into my dad's when I around that age, and then I moved into a women's refuge, women's hostel when I was 16. And this is when I was still at school, still doing my GCSEs, and I passed with 7 A stars and 4 Bs, and I got an A star in art. But yeah, so I mean, at that time I was very good academically in a lot of subjects, and I had quite a lot going on. Like at that age, it was just quite difficult. So then after school I went to college and I did art. So I did art at college, and that was the first time I actually sold a piece. So one of my pieces, we had an exhibition at the end of the year, and we would display all our pieces in an exhibition, and one of my pieces actually sold, which I was like, wow. And I was 18 at that time. Then I moved to London after and went to do digital photography. And so after I went to London South Bank University, then I graduated, then I started assisting. So I was assisting at Loft Studios, Hoxton Street Studios. I was assisting on the clientele in those studios were quite big. So, they'd have Vogue, they'd have Harper's Bazaar, they have really big clientele there. Anyhow, I then moved to New York and I was an intern. So I was an intern at Fast Ashley Studios, Milk Studios, and De Facto. And so I done quite a lot in terms of like being in different, environments to learn, to train, to really just develop. But I think I found that because I wasn't really settled within myself, I had a lot of internal battles. I had a lot of things happening within me internally. I knew that I needed to deal with a lot of things like within myself. And I just knew that as I was progressing in New York, I knew I was going to make it soon. I knew I was going to make it as a photographer. I just knew. But I just knew that that was not the environment I wanted to grow as a woman. And I knew that I had to have that time, have that space to really work on myself as a female, as a woman. And, then, build off a different foundation. It's been quite an interesting journey as an artist. of, you know, after I left New York, you know, I stopped doing photography as well. I wanted like a blank canvas in life and really just work on myself. And I worked in hospitality, and then I was just working with charcoal. So I was just doing, you know, charcoal pieces, and then I started doing, you know, working like small pieces in biro. You know, a few very small pieces, but again, like, you know, because I didn't really have like my own home, it was like from like place to place to place, or living in warehouses. It was really not really my own place, my own home, my own space, right? And so I was quite limited to the size and scale I could produce. But also, you know, I was working on different parts of myself as an artist, and I was, you know, got into a little bit of playing the guitar, learning about music, just trying to find my voice. And then, yeah, then I accidentally fell into boxing, would you believe? And I just fell in love with boxing, and that really gave me the kind of clear foundation that I was really desiring, like that within me internally. I felt like I could see clearly, hear clearly, and it really gave me a sense of, you know, direction and order and structure. And I was really passionate about learning boxing, and that's when I really drew closer to my faith in God as well. That's when I really had so many deep encounters with the Lord. And it was from then onwards that, you know, I moved back to my hometown. I actually moved back to my mom's from London. And then I was just building on myself further and further as an artist, as a woman, as an individual. And, you know, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. I've got closer to my mother. I've become a mother. I have a daughter. And so, you know, my femininity has really blossomed in these past couple of years. I got back into sewing again. So I've been sewing and working with textiles, and now I'm working with acrylics and paint. So, you know, it really has been a journey as an artist, and I'm so grateful that I took that big risk to leave New York to really work on myself internally, because that's the most important thing. You know, whatever you produce is really an extension of what's on the inside of you. And so I wanted something that was going to be, you know, a really true reflection of who I feel and believe I am designed to be. And so, you know, beyond being an artist by nature and design, I am on the pursuit of building legacy with substance. And so, you know, if you want to follow the journey, join the link in the description for the Artist Journal. This is where I will share with you studio notes from my upcoming body of work. This is where you'll get first access to upcoming work and upcoming collections that I'm going to be putting out there. And so if you'd like to join, link is in the description. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.